Hi, this is Lori from To the Trade, and I have with me Niall. Hi, Niall.
Hi.
And we, of course, have Sharon Sherman from Time and Place Design. I'm so excited we're talking to you, Sharon. We've been friends for a long time, and Sharon, just in full disclosure, is on our board for interior design community. And we have some really great conversation for you today because Sharon, you have been on the mission. You're a fantastic designer, but you're also a great speaker, an educator, and you have been on a mission to teach kitchen designers that they're leaving money on the table by not specifying furniture. And I think that's a really wonderful thing that you're trying to do, that segment of the market increase their profitability and makes them better designers to be like exploring a new facet of their business. Tell me a little bit though from the very beginning about your journey to create Time and Place Design.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so much fun to have a conversation beyond just you and I, usually on the fly, as it often happens. And yeah, so I had worked in a fairly high-end luxury design build firm in Burton County, New Jersey. And I was there for 20 years. I started as a design assistant, and I really developed their what we call commercial division. So it was multifamily housing. It's the time when townhouses first really came into being. And I was running 9 different projects in 3 different states. It was crazy. I was in my early 20s, and I survived the Me Too movement when it was really the Me Too movement. It was everything you think you've heard it was. And I at one point I had realized that we came back from a company trip, and because of the multifamily housing, I really sold a lot of cabinets. And my boss said to me, "Hey, I'm going to be putting a new sales manager in place." And I thought, "Oh, now's my chance," right? I'd been there 20 years, so I was no longer a newbie, 20-year-old, something fresh out of design school. I actually went to school for interior design. And he said, "So," and I'm thinking, "Yes, finally, this is going to be my time to shine." And he told me he was hiring or he was placing a man in that position who had been with the company a quarter of the time that I had been. And I just looked at him. I said, "You know what? If this is going to happen, I don't think I can stay." I said, "I've been here really helping you be successful for a super long time. I appreciate everything that you've done. But I'm like, what about me? And I've been loyal to you. I've been this and that." He goes, "I just think this is a better move." And I said, "Okay, if you make that announcement, I'm going to have to leave." And he didn't believe that I would. And we had our staff meeting on Thursday. He made the announcement. Friday morning, I was usually off on Fridays because I worked 100 hours a week. And I left my resignation letter on his desk. And he picked it up. He said, "What is this?" I said, "I told you it's time for me to get my own place." And that was how Time and Place was born.
Wow, that was brave. That's very brave of you, and that must have been a very scary moment to actually just go out on your own. And I know so many designers that have started their own business that way, and I always think it's one of those
Brave and
things that
inspiring.
right? It's
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
I think it was just
Yeah.
insanity, actually,
No,
because
no.
I had a pretty good gig. I worked 4 to 5 days a week at that point. I only worked with clients that were referral clients because all the years that I did all those townhouse developments, I created a lot of really good relationships with my clients. And I was doing more than just kitchens and bathrooms. I was doing all their built-ins. I was doing their
Yeah.
interior design work. I was doing all the things that our company didn't do. And it was all things that I learned to do in design school and that I love to do. I love to do furniture, and I love to do window treatments, and I love to do finishing colors. And I love to do, well, I don't really love to do accessories, but I like to do accessories. And I just really felt that as I was starting to bring that into that company, like I was going to take that company to a different level. But you have to remember, I was 40. I had 2 small children. My husband was like, "Are you going to bankrupt us by doing this?" I'm like, "Thanks, honey. That was just the best accolade that you could give me." Not.
So the reality of starting your business, people the very first thing you think about is how much is this going to cost and what is this going to look like for our finances? And
It was here.
if you're not one of those designers with a wealthy husband, it's difficult, I think, to
Yeah, I
be
didn't
that
have a
brave.
wealthy husband. As I said, I had 2 small children. And when I kicked off Time and Place Design, I agreed willingly. I actually volunteered. I said, "I'm not going to use my email list that I have from you guys. I'm not going to use any of my contacts. I'm not going to take any of my subcontractors that I've worked with for 20 years. I'm just gone. And it worked out okay. My clients found me. They still to this day find me. It's really crazy how people, when that was the early days of Facebook and all of those things. So I really was able to use some of that to let everybody know that I went out on my own. And it was good and it was scary. And here I am 20 years later doing the same thing again. So
Right.
I
You
just couldn't
are.
help
Yeah.
myself. Yeah. I will say that
Yeah.
I had a client though that really kicked that off because I had a client who had been a client of mine for almost 20 years. And he owned apartment buildings in the city. I did all of the kitchens in those apartment buildings for my other job. And I did office building pantries. I did interior design for him. I learned how to do elevators. I did hallways. I did all kinds of crazy things. And it was my 40th birthday. And we always used to have a holiday, a spring and a fall luncheon. And it was my 40th birthday. And he insisted that my boss, at the time, Le Cirque was the place to go in the city. And he insisted that my boss took us to lunch there. And it was his way of saying to me, this is your swan song. So get ready. Because if you don't do this now, you're going to look back in 20 years and you're going to kick yourself in the butt for not at least trying. Even if you failed, at least you've tried. And you don't want to have any past regrets. My mom died of Alzheimer's. She was 93. And I always say she lived an unrequited life. So all of the things she ever really wanted to do, she never took that final step. She never took that leap of faith. And I just didn't want to look back and say, I too have lived this unrequited life. I've had some amazing experiences. I met people like you and Niall, and it's been wonderful. And I've been able to reach to designers to help them as well in ways that I would have never thought that I could.
How long did it take for you to become profitable when you started that business?
2 years.
2 years. Wow. And I bet you were working the same hours. You were working crazy hours for someone else. Why not work those crazy hours for yourself? You know,
And I
and
have to
you're
qualify profitable though, Lori. So profitable for me was making the same money that I was making when I was working for somebody else.
right.
I started
right.
making money right away. My business was
Right.
to make money. I was making money on the jobs. I was not making as much money because I had more expenses, but I had an income, and that was important so that I could still, if I wanted a new pair of shoes, I could buy a new pair of shoes. But I think that's an important differentiation for me when people say, are you profitable? So I made
Right.
from day one. And by the time it took me 2 years to recoup to the level that I was at when I left the other company, which is still pretty fast.
It is very fast. Now you've transitioned from owning your own business to starting to educate other designers. What called you to do that?
I would be on lovely sites like the interior design community, and I would go to conferences and I would speak with designers, and they'd be saying, oh my gosh, kitchen designers would say, I'm losing so much work to interior designers. Then interior designers would be saying, I really wish I could do kitchens and baths. And I started looking at the way people were doing business, and I am a process and systems person. I have things that I follow. When I started my own company, first thing I did is I created a business plan. I had a marketing strategy. I had all the things that you really need that I don't think people always think about putting together when they start a business, and especially designers. I was at an event where we were in a group with somebody who owned a big design building. And they were all upset because they had installed interior designers in that design building to be able to sell to the public. And he kept saying, this is a business. And the designers would say, no, this is a feeling. This is an emotion. This is what we bring to a space. And I thought, this is a business. And if you can bring all the emotion you want and all the feeling you want, but if you're not selling things, if you're not bringing in money, then you're not a business, you're a hobby. And I just realized that there was like this niche that was missing. The kitchen and bath designers are probably some of the most technically precise people I've ever met. Plus, they have great vision. They know all kinds of things about construction. They know so many things, and yet they're afraid to step into the world of, let me put wall covering on the wall. Let me finish this space. Let me find the counter stools. Let me do the kitchen table. Let me do the lighting. And it's resistant even today. And I kept saying to them, as more and more interior designers move into the kitchen and bath space, your funnel of business is going to get smaller and smaller. And if you're not finishing all these rooms and creating these environments and being an important component of what goes on in people's homes when they need that wine room done, or when they want to have that library or that home office or that whatever, and there was an interior designer involved, they tend to call the interior designer back and then say, hey, can you bring so and so in maybe to do the cabinets? And the interior designer is now has the upper hand, because if they don't care to use you, you're relegated to this subcontractor position, which I don't think any kitchen and bath designer should find themselves in. Now, not everybody wants to do it, and I totally understand that. But I see the world
Sure.
changing. I see the world of design changing. I see the crossover changing. And interior designers are much more willing to learn how to drive revenue to their business with kitchen and bath than kitchen and bath people are willing to drive revenue with interior design, which is, I don't understand.
I see. I think you're 100% right on that. And if they're not paying attention, I can see it plain as day that those worlds are colliding
Yeah.
faster and faster toward each other. And throw in home technology too. Those are all segmenting together, where it's something that you just have to learn. We as an industry have had to evolve. There were designers that I remember when social media came on the scene, there were designers that were like, you don't need social media. You don't need Google. Google's not, my clients don't find me on Google. And the thing is, like, the designers who are savvy about that, and we're savvy about SEO and savvy about social media, we're cleaning up. We're getting new clients. We're expanding the industry and I'm not talking like, oh, the little DIY step above DIY project. I'm talking like celebrity clients, high income earners. Those clients were going to those savvy designers who were understanding that this is a new tool to market your business.
And you're creating a relationship with people that you can't create if people can't get. I've had this conversation with a design friend of mine forever and ever. And I keep saying to her, put a website together. And she's like, why? My client B doesn't necessarily want what client A wants. I'm like, no, but client B would like to see what client A did. And you get inspirations and all from it. And she really has resisted that. She resists photographing things. She's resisted putting anything up. And a couple of weeks ago, we were together and she's, I don't have any work. I don't know what we're going to do. And I'm like, do not whine to me. I have been talking to you about this for the last 10 years, trying to convince you that not every project is the same. Every project on my website is completely different from the other one because every client's different. But people like to see it. They like to know what it's like. They want to hear the story behind it. We're really creating stories with the interiors that we create. She's just not willing to do it. And she's in a tough place now.
Yeah. And that is really, it's sad when you're resistant to the marketing that it takes to run a business. But at the same time, it's those very same people who read every review before they go to a hotel, or read every review before they go to a restaurant. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the client, and that's what they're going to want to do too. They're going to want to look at what you have and what you've done to know if you're the designer for them. And you've even gone a step further in that you travel to speak with designers, you offer CEUs, you offer classes, you've really positioned yourself as a great educator in this industry. And I just wonder why you're taking the time to do that. I know it's not easy to step into that role of education. It's not as obviously as profitable as the design part of your business. So what is that calling for you?
For me, it's a career legacy. I started in 1982. Here we go. Truth in lending. I started in 1982. I was 22 years old. I got my first job and I had to learn everything myself because I learned how to do a layout. I learned how to do this and that, but my boss was, hey, you're going to run this division and build it and take it to wherever. And at the time I turned it into a $10 million division of a $4 million a year company. I did the accounting. I did all the ordering. I negotiated the contracts. I did all the design work. I set up the sales offices. I taught the salespeople how to sell. I met with every single client. I placed the orders. I checked all the acknowledgments. I field measured everything. I oversaw the installation. I did it all. And I didn't learn any of that in school. And when I got out of school and was trying to find people that like, how do you do this? What does your contract look like? People are like, oh, I really want to share with you. And even today, I think it's getting better, but I have 40 plus years. I'm sorry?
Just a
A little bit
little,
better. I
a little better.
40 plus years of, I have seen it. Trust me. I've sat in your chair. I've worn your shoes. I've put up with all that stuff on the job sites. I've had to find my own suppliers. I've had to find my own contractors. I've had to learn how to interview a client. Had to learn how to price jobs. I've had to learn what needs to be in my contract. I've had to learn how to sell. I've had to learn how to manage difficult people. Nobody teaches you that anymore. And networking, to network is so important. We've lost the subtle art of communication and all of those things. I've learned just through years of doing it and sales training. My latest thing is going to be sales is not a 4-letter word. Watch for that.
Right. I know Niall and I had that conversation multiple times where he was always very resistant to selling. And I was just like, we've had this conversation too. He agrees with it too now, that selling is just, nobody wants to think of themselves. And I think designers struggle with thinking of themselves as just as salespeople, but they are.
Because you're not taught that. You're not taught that in school.
You're not taught any of it.
No.
And if you're,
yeah, and so to
none of
come out,
business
yeah.
acumen.
but if you're collecting
Yeah,
money
so
for
it's-
something that you're creating, guess what? You're selling it. I don't know why. I don't know why people are, and the creatives are so afraid of selling something and having somebody buy something from you, because that's what you're doing is a transaction, is a business transaction. An idea is exchanged, your product is exchanged for money. And we shouldn't look at sales as being such a horrible thing, because sales really is understanding your clients, meeting them where they are, being able to work with their budget, being able to.
I think it's so much deep root. I think it's more deep rooted than that. I think if you go back to like people who are artists or who are creatives from the beginning of like their adolescence, I want to be a creative. No, go to school and be a doctor. So it's like where the value is placed, and then that sort of stays with them, and that sort of is intrinsically in them, and they take that value and they hold on to it, and then they don't know how to place a dollar on what it is that they offer, and so it snowballs, and so you never really understand. I'm selling. What am I worth? What is the value of what I do? Because somebody passed along a story to you, that said, don't be a designer, be a doctor. Don't be an artist, be a lawyer. Don't be a muralist, be an accountant. And so because of that story, I think a lot of times we carry that with us, and it snowballs into this whole thing. I'm not a salesperson. I don't have value. And I just think I think it's so much bigger than not that we don't want to be. It's just, it's not taught, then it's deep rooted. It's like all the things,
Look, I grew up with no money. We had no money. My clothes came from church sales, may have something to do with why I dress the way I do now. I don't know. But I think it built character. And it also made me realize that I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. We live bare bones. And it was either like, okay, we could put gas in the car and drive to the food store, or we can buy food. So, all right, we'll walk to the food store so we can buy food. And, once you start to balance that out, that you can be creative and you can be successful, because I'm going to tell you what, any of the people that you're watching on Instagram, or that you're watching on TV, or that you're watching anywhere, they are not doing any of that for free. And that is what is super important to remember. The people that you idolize, this is not their hobby. I don't care what they say. So that's why I've just started to say, you know what? I have all of this knowledge, the forms that I have, all the things that I've created all these years. I finally have said, that's it. I'm putting it all down, and I'm going to offer it to people. If they want to buy it and use it for themselves, great. If they don't want to use it, okay, but it's available. And the reason that I'm not giving it away is because what I have found through the years, people ask me for advice, and I'll give them advice like my friend, and they don't take it. And then they come back and ask for more advice, which they still don't take. Whereby when something is available, but you have to make an investment in it, it works better for them. And it sounds really weird, but if you're willing to make the investment, you're willing to follow through. And that's why I finally said, I have all this great knowledge, years and years of knowledge, things that you just can't buy, all put together in one neat little package for you. And you don't even have to buy all of it. You can buy it in parts if you want. Not ridiculous, less than a pair of shoes. I buy expensive shoes, but less than a pair of shoes. And it's there for you to use, and you can use it as a template. You're going to be able to put your own logo on it. You're going to be able to repurpose it. You're going to do all these things. So we'll see how it goes. So that's what started it. And then wanting to be able to.
And I'm going to just put in here that I will put links to her tools in this post when we release it. We're going to make sure that you can grab a link to this and buy it yourself if you'd like. So don't worry.
Thank you, Lord. But to be honest with you, look at the questions that are asked on your community page. Things that people just don't know. How do I do this? How do I negotiate higher prices? Why are you negotiating a higher price? Charge what you're worth. And if you're not sure what you're worth, figure it out. Nobody does
Figure it out.
for
Yeah.
free. And there are ways to figure it out because there are tools out there. But if you really want to live the life that you want to live and you want to be good at what you do, you have to have value in what you do and place value on it. And people will place value on you. Because again, if you're doing it for free, if it's free, why do you, like, when you walk down the street and people are handing out free things, you look at them and walk around them, right? You know, you're like, why are you giving something for free? Where somebody's saying, okay, I have this and you can purchase it. You know, the people are like, let me look, let me shop. And that was a big difference. But for me, it's really the legacy of my career, of everything that I've learned. And hopefully people will be interested in it. They are when I do these conference talks. I have SRO, a lot of these. And people, they're interested. Wow, no one's ever told us that before. And where can I buy this? And that's really what started it. Where can I buy your presentation? Like,
absolutely, because I don't know how many conversations I've had with designers at High Point or other shows where I will mention like SOPs, and they're like, "What are SOPs?" I'm like, "Okay, you should have standard of operating procedures. Every business should, and you should absolutely not have employees also unless you have some standard operating procedures, because that's where things are going wrong, because they don't know what to do and they don't know how to follow your system.
Yep.
And if you had ready-made standard operating procedures, take years to develop, because every time your client has a problem with your process, it's not your client's fault, it's your process's fault. You have to change something about how your communication is working or something about how your business is running in order to make sure that those issues don't happen. It's not your client being a jerk, it's your process isn't clear. So
you can't.
I love that you have that available, that someone who doesn't have anything, doesn't have a standard operating procedure for their business, can just buy that from you. That is years worth of saving them their life. You know what I mean? So that they can learn from all the steps that you've learned. Because I guarantee you, your standard operating procedures have changed in those 20 years because of every problem you've experienced.
You can see it on the bottom of my forms. I have revision dates on them. And you can see when I revise them. When I first started, I made an employee handbook, which that's another thing I want to make available. I do have an employee handbook, but especially for designers, it's your letter of agreement. Your letter of agreement is so important. And when it comes to kitchen and bath, it's even more important, because there are things that go on that you don't even realize, things that don't happen when you're doing furniture, things with cabinetry and all that. It just doesn't come into play. And that's why I think that this paperwork, these years of paperwork, it's funny. I was going to put together one little book that was like 10 pages. And now we have 3 books that are, I think, 30 pages each. That's how much stuff I have. And I think it will be worthwhile. I have not had one person ever say to me, "I'm really sorry that I invested in any time with you." Sometimes they'll come back at me and say, "Wow, this is a lot. How did you do all this?" And I'm like, "It took years, but I stuck with it." And if you want to be successful, you'll stick with it.
So what do you think is a challenge that the kitchen designer is having with branching into the interiors? Why are they resistant to it?
I think it comes from a lot of different things. You know, unless you have an interior design background, it's really hard to understand furniture. It's really hard to understand some of the things that go into it. And anytime you're starting something new, it's different. How do I buy it? Where do I get it? A designer that I'm working with now, this was all of her questions. Like, how do I get it delivered? I said, the same way you get your cabinets delivered. How do I do this? How do I do that? And in the early days for me, I have longstanding accounts with companies that don't give out accounts anymore, with furniture manufacturers and fabric lines. And they just don't exist because I had good credit. I was serious when I put my business together, and I was able to get open accounts. It's not the case anymore. And logistics have changed. I had a staff of 7 people when I was doing all of this. And then things changed and I changed the way I was doing things, but that's for another podcast.
Hmm.
There are companies out there now that can be there for designers. And a lot of them, I think they've just gotten out of the habit. They're like, oh, I really don't want to pick out light fixtures. I'm like, why? It's like Niall just said a moment ago. You're given a set of circumstances that you believe are true for where you are in your life. And if you choose when you come to that proverbial fork in the road to say, which way am I going to go? Am I going to branch out a little bit more? Am I going to look at this in a different way? I'm just sitting here looking at my office, this wall covering that's in here. This wallpaper just makes me happy. This is my little office, which no one else ever sees, but it was really easy to order this, except for the fact that they sent the wrong wallpaper 3 times. So yes, there is that aspect of it, but it's no different than what you would have with a damaged towel bar or any of the other things that you get involved with. I just think interior designers are afraid. Kitchen and bath designers are afraid, where interior designers are not, because interior designers use kitchen and bath designers to do what they do. And again, I think it's not that difficult. It's like going to another country, not speaking the language, and being concerned about how you'll get around and if it'll be a good experience or not. And it's a very simple language to learn. You just have to start at the beginning and find the right people to help you. And there are so many design centers out there that would love to have kitchen and bath designers come in and say, all right, you're doing a project. Let me help you. There are so many virtual assistants out there that would be more than happy to help figure out as much as you can figure out how cabinets fit. You have an 1/8 of an inch tolerance for cabinets. You put a sofa in a room, you can zhuzh it over 2 or 3 inches and it's going to be fine. And I think that's the hurdle that a lot of K&B people have to get over. They're like, I don't want to spend that much time picking those things out. And I'm like, I don't spend any more time picking out light fixtures for a client than I do picking out cabinet hardware and what tile they're going to use. It's all part of that process. And that's the point. You have to have the process. And if you don't have that, it can become daunting.
Do you think a good first step for a kitchen designer who's thinking that they want to explore this would be coming to something like High Point Market?
I'm going to say yes, but with a caveat.
Okay.
I have gone to High Point Market for years, and I really know what companies really like to work with designers across the board. They don't really care if you are a designer that's going to bring them $500,000 a year, or if you're a designer that's going to buy 2 sconce lights. So it's important to know where you're going to look at things and things that are really suited to kitchen and bath. And yes, a lot of furniture is suited to kitchen and bath, but you really need to have companies that are going to be able to provide a wide variety of products that have the ability to ship things for you, that can customize if necessary, just like customizing a cabinet. So there's a lot of things at High Point that probably don't apply to what you're going to purchase, but there are tons of places to go to see what are the newest colors, what are things looking like, what are molding details looking like, what's happening with hardware, what kind of textures are there, what are the new colors, if I didn't say colors yet, what's the style that's coming in, is mid-century modern still hot, are we going back to more traditional details, which I saw a lot of when I was at High Point, what colors are coming through. And that's the value of High Point. And if you can do that a couple of times, I think it's helpful. I would love to have a tour, and I tried to get the NKBA to do this because they were actually down at High Point this year. I said, advertise a tour for kitchen and bath designers who have never been to High Point, have no idea where to start, what to do. Let's pick 5 places that they can go that have a reasonable amount of product that they can choose from, that's going to be really easy to order. They have a dedicated customer service team. They'll be able to help you with logistics to get things shipped, and they have ways to handle damages, because that's one of the biggest things for me with furnishings is damages. I would love to be able to do that, because I did it with a couple of people this last time and they were like, oh my gosh, how do you know all this? I'm like, years of coming here and spending time in places that were not productive for me. So now I can go to places that are productive, that have high performance fabrics that you're going to want in a kitchen or a bathroom, that are going to have the right light fixtures that you can use in damp locations, that are going to have beautiful accessories, that are going to have the right furnishings. When I photograph my jobs, I accessorize them. How are you photographing your projects? Do you have accessories? Floor coverings, and the right companies to go and look for those things. So that's what I think is missing right now for the K&B world. And I don't know, I'm trying to change it. We'll see what happens. I'm trying.
I think it's smart for those kitchen designers to be paying attention because if, as you said, NKBA coming to High Point Market is an example of the association wanting to reach out to interior designers. If you're not reaching across the aisle, the interior designers are for sure. And NKBA in their backyard trying to make that happen, trying to have those open conversations. What do you think are some common mistakes you see when designers are trying to explore getting into furnishing? What do you think that they would make mistakes doing initially? And how can they not make them?
I'm just looking outside. There are 3 deer in my backyard eating everything. And I'm like, mistakes that they make. I think size and scale is really tough. Understanding that you can't just order furniture off the internet. You actually need to go and sit in it. I don't sell anything to anybody. See, I use the word sell. Did you like that? I don't specify anything for anyone that I have not sat in, touched, felt, lived with, looked at. That's probably one of the first mistakes because it's just different, right? The depth of seats need to be comfortable. Guys sit differently than women do. I usually will grab, if I see a guy there and say, do me a favor, sit in this chair. Tell me what you think. And then find another guy that's maybe really tall. If he was short, tell me how it sits. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, sit. I think that's probably one of the mistakes is not seeing the pieces in person,
Right.
knowing how they feel when you sit in them. Counter stools, man, if you're doing counter stools in a kitchen, they better be comfy because you're probably going to be there a long time. Same thing with tables and chairs, right? Lighting. How easy is it going to be to clean that light fixture if you're putting it up over an island where you've got some sort of cooking that's going on? I think those are probably the first mistakes that I would say probably are more common than anything else. Specifying
Right.
materials, right? You probably don't want a beautiful silk damask on a kitchen counter stool where you're going to have kids and dogs and food. And so I think probably those would be some of
And you can lean on some of the manufacturers too that can tell you what is designer friendly for kitchen and what is. They do have data that backs up and even in your area to say these are the most popular products. These are the products that are selling in your area so that you have an idea of what other designers are specifying to ask those questions of your reps, ask those questions of the brands.
And
I also think
I'm lucky because I'm 30 minutes outside of Manhattan. I can drive over the bridge.
Yeah.
I've got 3 major design centers that I can go
Right.
to and wander in and out and say, oh, what's this fabric? How does that hold up? Where would I use this? How to use that? Not everybody's that fortunate. So I think that's where your reps.
There are some major design deserts out there. So absolutely. Do you think that there's going to be any pushback from the designers who do work with kitchen designers that will feel like kitchen designers getting into the soft furnishing might be stepping on their toes? What do you think about that?
Personally, I believe there's room for everybody. There are so many clients out there. There's some K&B professionals that don't want to have anything to do with interior design and never will. It's just not what they want to do. I have done it forever. And where my studio is, we have 5 major design firms that specialize in kitchens and baths within a 5-minute drive. And none of us are wanting for work. So if you are working with a designer, so here's the thing. I don't go out and say to people, oh, let me do your bedroom, right? If I'm doing a primary suite, perfect example. I have somebody who came and they said, we were recommended from another client, want to do a primary suite. I'm like, great. And they said, but we don't know how to furnish it. And I said, let's see how it goes. Because I don't take on every client to do interior design. I'm very careful about the clients that I do take and do not take. As we've gotten into this more and more, and I've really starting to understand what they like and what they don't like, I said, absolutely, we can do furnishing. So I'm going to take them into the city. We'll go into the showrooms. We'll shop that way. They've already shown me pictures of what they like. I know exactly where to go. So it's not like I'm dragging them from showroom to showroom. I'm going to make an appointment. We're going to go to that showroom and we're going to look at these products. The showroom's going to know we're coming. So that is something that my competition, I know some of them are doing design work over there. We're all still pretty busy. And if you have an interior designer that's worked with a kitchen designer forever and ever, and all of a sudden that interior designer is losing business to that kitchen designer, then I would say maybe the interior designer needs to look at how they were working a little bit. But I think partnerships are partnerships. It's not designer A buys some cravat, designer B buys some cravat, designer C buys some cravat. Should cravat not sell to all three designers, or should they say, we're only going to work with you? I
Right.
think that's how we have to look at it. I worry more for the kitchen and bath world than I worry for the interior design world, because as more and more interior designers get into the space of kitchen and bath, I just see them creating more and more environments that maybe the K and B folks aren't going to be getting first grab for any longer, or losing a job because they can't do it. That was really
Right.
how I started. I'd have clients that would say, we love you, what you choose. And I'm pulling stuff together for them anyway. So if I'm doing a kitchen for somebody, I'm saying, look, I see this on the wall covering, and if you get furnishing, it would look really cool if you had this fabric and this kind of feel for this and that. And they're like, why can't you just do it for us? And
Right.
like,
Why
okay,
do I don't hire someone else?
yeah, and
So
that's just like,
I have to bring someone else into the
why do I want to
mix.
bring somebody else into this? We really like what you're doing. They're going to upset the apple cart. So in that case, yeah, I will. But just like to take on doing somebody's bedroom, no. Just if somebody said to me, I'm doing a dining room, are you doing built-ins? Because that's usually if you're doing built-in someplace, then yes, I will work on it, because my primary interest is not just the interior design.
You just said that you will not take just anybody, any client for interior design. What is your differentiator? What do you want and what do you not want as an interior design client?
So I want to do cabinetry. Cabinetry is my love. And I guess I'll parable a story here. My neighbor down the
Sure.
street, COVID had just hit. She's an executive in Manhattan. And she had recently been divorced. She bought this sweet little ranch. And she said to me, I can't work on my dining room table anymore. Can you help me? So I'm like, sure. So I went in, and I love this client. She's my friend. I will preface what I'm about to tell you. So she takes me down the stairs. We go through this 1950s basement, which has everything that everybody in the world that she knows brought to her and put in. And we go find in this back room. She goes, this is where I want my office to be. And me with my mouth said, oh, are you recreating your commute from the Port Authority to your office? I walk into here. Jeez, what do you mean? What about this other space that we're walking through? She goes, what should we do? And I'm like, you love wine. We should do a wine area. You need exercise space. You need entertaining area. You need all these things. She's, oh my God, I never thought of that. So yes, we did the office. I did a beautiful bar for her. I laid the whole thing out, and we started talking about furniture. And she's, I want to go to this store, and I want to shop here, and I want to shop there. I'm like, okay. And I said, if you pick furniture out, just let me see the colors that you're picking before you choose them. I knew that she was really the type that liked to shop, and she was going to want to look at all the retail outlets, and she was going to look at all these things. And that's just not what I wanted to do. So she bought a sofa, absolutely fine. She bought an end table. She bought another couple of pieces. And then she said to me, where do I get stools? And I said, I will finish the rest of the room, but these are the things I will supply for you. And I was very specific about it. And she did. She bought all of it for me. So we bought counter stools. I bought 2 swivel chairs. We bought these other gorgeous custom tables. What else did she bought? A rug. She goes, I don't want to buy. How do I buy a rug? So when we went to look for the counter stools, we were in a showroom, and she goes, I love that piece of furniture. Where can we put that? And what about those lamps? I'm like, okay, we can buy those things. So it really depends on where people want to buy, what their budget is, because I don't shop retail. So if you're buying furniture from me, it's going to be a trade source only, and it's going to probably be a little more costly than what you might be able to find in some of the big box stores where she was looking. Not that there's anything wrong with those products. It's just not what I sell. And that's the differentiation. If you're really wanting to go to a retail shop, that's great. Send me the pictures.
I love that.
I will, that's it.
Send you the pictures. And has that ever happened that they don't send the pictures and you're like, what is this?
Oh, if they don't have, no, I've never had anybody do that, because I'm like, if you're wrong, you're on your own. I won't do the customer service for it. I've created this whole environment for you. I'm willing to let you buy those pieces, but you really want it all to work together. And if somebody's, you know what, I just want you to do the layout and let me go buy everything, I will do that. Not a problem. But I'm just not a retail shopper. I don't want to drive up and down the highway stopping at all those big stores walking around looking at furniture. It's just so easy for me because I know what it should look like in my head when I put the project together. Does that make sense?
Right. And you know the
Yeah.
qualities of the To the Trade brands.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know that your client is buying less
Yeah.
than quality. Do you, just to switch a little bit with you, with the products the tools that you're offering designers, do you offer any support beyond the collateral materials that you're offering? If a designer wanted to work with you directly on that and customize it for their business or wanted your advice, I know you don't do traditional coaching, interior design coaching per se, but you do work with people one-on-one sometimes also, correct? Yeah.
Trade. Absolutely. Tips from the trade. And I do. And I have. People will say to me, oh, my business isn't going where, it's not doing this, it's not doing that. And I'm like, well, let's talk about your ideal client. Let's figure out who they are and how you're going to reach them. And what they'll start to realize is that who their ideal client is not who they've been trying to attract. And once they're like, no, I really want to do this and that, we figure out, okay, then let's look at a 5-step, little marketing strategy for you. They come back and, oh my God, my business is booming. It's just,
I love that.
set of eyes. And I don't need to have a monthly coaching thing. You don't need me monthly. You need the ideas to get you going, right? You need the truth.
Love that you just said that, by the way, because so many people, and it's not, there are great coaches out there too. But there are some predatory coaches out there. And it's this need to keep doing this and that you have to
Drag
keep
it
paying.
out.
You don't know when you're going to see the results and it just keeps going. And it's just like, it's wonderful that you're not looking at it as a cash cow. You're just looking at it. I want to help you. And I know you're not going to take the advice seriously if you don't pay for it. So here's the price for it. But ultimately my goal is to help you. And I know you don't need me every day. You're not going to, first of all, they're probably not going to have the time to talk to you every week, every month, no matter what. Some projects get busy.
You should be doing the work. So listen, I am like okay, so here's what I am. I am a travel agent. I am saying, okay, here's where we're going to start. And here's your destination, right? And this is what we're going to do to get there. It's going to be like a river cruise. So you have to stop at each of these little ports along the way. And these are the things you need to get done at each of these ports. And if you don't get them done, you can't go to the next port. It's okay if you don't.
Right.
It might take you 6 months to do this because you're busy, you're running a business, you're trying to bring something new into your company. You don't get to work on it all the time. And if you choose to change your mind, you're now roped into having to talk to me once a month for a year. Why? If you're like, this really isn't for me. But here's how you get there. And if you have a stumbling block, call me and I could talk to you about it. And we can figure out how to get you back on track. Like you missed that boat. So let's wait. The next one's coming around. And in the meantime, while you're waiting, look into this, look into that. I have so many connections and so many sources for people. Somebody couldn't find somebody to hire. I'm like, to do drafting. I'm like, get a virtual assistant. They're like, where do you find them? The next 3 steps of what they needed to do with their business, they couldn't do because they didn't have anybody to take over all this work. So I'm like, here you go. Here's the names. Call them. Tell them I told you to call. I haven't heard from her since. So I guess it's going well.
And so this is ideal and my feeling is this is ideal for the interior designer that wants to explore kitchen design and the kitchen designer who wants to explore interior design. Both of those people are really in your niche.
Yes.
If you're looking to learn and branch out.
And what I find so interesting, so this journey for me started 5 years ago. And I had it all mapped out and I got on the wrong train. So I got diverted. And in my diversion, I started to say, maybe this wasn't a good idea. And then I would have something happen where someone would say, I really wish I knew how to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, maybe I need to figure out how to get back on the train. So now I've been wandering in this little side town. I'm like, all right, let me find the train station, get back on and go again. And really for me, the last 6 months, I've been totally back on that train and been able to put all this stuff together and realizing that this is so valuable. Like it is so valuable. I just hope people will see it and try it. And I hope it's successful. I hope it's successful just because then I will feel like I've launched another business, but also that if it's successful, I know people are benefiting from it. And now more and more, I see people talking about K&B designers getting into interior design, interior designers crossing over into kitchen and bath. I did a panel at High Point 2 years ago now with Pam McNally, and that's what we talked about is interior designers driving revenue to their business with from kitchen and bath is very profitable if you know what you're doing. Much more profitable than interior design. And that is the key because it's really hard to know how to design a kitchen effectively and efficiently and beautifully and put it all together and price it. You can't really shop that. It's really easy to
Right.
see a sofa, put it in Google Lens and then go shop it. It's really hard to shop a custom design kitchen and all of the components that go into it. Kitchen and bath is not a bad world to be in.
No, and it leads to other rooms, as you said. You start in the kitchen and bath, which is a normal remodel schedule for most Americans in the country. And then you have opportunity to do more than that. You have opportunity to do the entire home. You have opportunity to do their second home, their third home, whatever that might be. What do you think, we're wrapping up soon, what do you think is the future of kitchen design? What's coming down the pipeline that excites you?
Product-wise? Design?
Product, business, whatever it might be.
Oh, wow.
What's exciting right now?
So exciting for me is it's a whole new world. We're finally, there's nothing wrong with the color gray and there's nothing wrong with the color white, but we've stopped designing homes for the next homeowner. People,
Thank God.
5 years ago, we're going to sell our house and we want to design a kitchen for whoever's going to buy it. I'm like, who's buying it? I'm like, well, we don't know. I'm like, then how are you designing a kitchen for it? We just want to put in white cabinets with gray countertops. I'm like, I'm not your girl. And that's something you also have to be able to say. I have a lot of clients that call me and they'll want to talk to me. And I'll just say, I just don't think I can provide the right project for you. I don't go to your house without getting paid. And I have people like, you what? I'm like, if you want me to come out, I have a 90-minute consultation. It's $500. $450 of that is donated to a local charity. I support the 5 towns around where I am. And they're like, we have to pay you for your time. Oh, we don't think we want to do that. I'm like, okay, thanks. So that I think that has to change. And I think if we as a design community, as a profession, can say to people, we're professionals. We do what we do. We change the way you live in your home. We affect wellness. We affect mental well-being. We affect health. I think all of those things people are starting to realize are super, super important. So I think that is also part and parcel of what's going to change. So we're out of the let me design my home for the next homeowner. We're into let me personalize and tailor the design that we're doing, especially in kitchens and bathrooms, work from home spaces, laundry rooms. I did laundry rooms like 10 years ago that had artist desks in them and all things. And they're like, these are coming back. I see that direction changing where kitchen and bath is really becoming a whole house concept. So we got color, wellness, whole house concepts. And then as AI plays into this more and more, and you, Lori, know I've talked about AI redefining interior design, I think it's going to really change the way we use kitchens and bathrooms for wellness. And it's really going to bring so many new things into, and that's the technology you talked about, into our design space, even monitoring our health, having a medicine cabinet that has infrared that can read temperatures and can read all different sorts of things. I think that aspect is going to continue to expand and enhance our life and our well-being.
I love that. And that was for where the world of design and kitchen design is going. But what I would love to also ask, what is next for you and Time and Place design? What is your next chapter like?
So I'm still designing. I just came back from a 15,000 square foot house where I am doing not only the interior art,
Nice.
I hate to use that word because I think interior architecture is very misleading, but I'm doing all the design, the millwork, the cabinets, the countertops, all of the soft goods, all the hard goods, the window covers, everything. And I'm project managing that with my contractor. So that's something that's going to continue. I really would like to work with some brands to help them learn how to talk to designers because I don't think they know how to talk to designers. And to be honest with you, I don't think designers know how to talk to brands. So that would be something
I think both happens. Yeah.
I would love to do. And I experienced that at High Point, right? I spent some time with folks from a brand and I was really able to open their eyes to the design community. So I would love to be able to do more like that. I keep being told I should write a book.
Yes, I think that you should write a book, actually. I think
Agreed.
it's fantastic.
I,
And we didn't even bring up, this is another thing that you do is you do Reiki too. There's so many facets of
Wow.
you, Sharon. Of course you should be writing a book. You have so much wisdom to offer. Absolutely.
and that's something I really started talking about a lot more. And that's how to, because everybody's talking about intentional design. Oh, I design intentionally. I design holistically. What does that mean? Are you able to transmute the energy in somebody's home to change the way they interact with that energetic field? And people go, what? And they don't really understand at that level what that's all about. So I do talk about it. I've done talks on designing your home with the colors of the chakras, how to balance things, creating an emotional escape room. Yeah, timeless well-being. It's still there. It's on the periphery. It is on the periphery.
It is a $1 trillion business. The wellness industry is a $1 trillion business, and much of it is not backed by science. And you are bringing science into the world of design for clients. So
Yeah.
I think that is really fantastic. And I want the listeners to know we will include all of the links so that you can get much of Sharon's wisdom for your very own business and have you a lot more profitable by doing so. So thank you so much, Sharon. We very much
Everybody needs
appreciate
quantum
you.
physics in their life.
I don't, but yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for coming and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Niall. Thank you, Laura.